Good afternoon. Let's go a quick show of hands. Who was in this session last year? Who was here last year? Okay. So there'll be no mentions of PTO requests. There'll be no live demos. But for those who've been in this session before, you'll know that quite literally over the next 45 minutes, anything could happen. Yeah, take. I know all you avid tweeters out there, and what you maybe don't know, and I'll be very honest, as I always am in these sessions, is that the number of tweets that you make actually affects James and my bonus. So the more tweets that you tweet, the more money we make. So please start now and continue all the way through using the hashtags of Citrix Synergy and the hashtag Future of Work. So I'm Christian Riley, Vice President and CTO here at Citrix, and with James Bulpin, who is the Senior Director of Engineering within our Emerging Technologies group. We don't often let James out because he's a developer by heart, and you know that you don't let developers out anywhere near the sunlight, but we've given him a special dispensation because he's helping me with the demos as we go through today. So anybody in the keynote today? Everybody see the keynote? Okay, what do you guys think? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit today about what might happen next. And the great thing about being CTO, of course, as I say every year, is that not everything we talk about will necessarily come true. So we like to talk about the future, but we like to put the future in the context of where we think things are going to evolve to. So within the CTO office, we spend quite a lot of time looking at some trends within the industry, not just technology trends, but socio-economic trends, things that are going to impact the way that we work, the way that we live. And it's kind of interesting because as futurists, we kind of forget that there was a past. And for the last 400 or 500 years, one way or another, we've been worrying about the end of work as we know it. In fact, in my home country of the United Kingdom, about 400 years ago, there was a very interesting incident that happened with the then Queen, who actually banned a patent for a knitting machine. And she banned the patent application because she was frightened that if a knitting machine came into mass production, it would signal the end of all the fair maidens who were weavers by trade. Interestingly enough, the guy that filed the patent went ahead anyway and mass-produced these knitting machines. And 200 years later, there were actually 4 times as many people in that weaving profession as there were when the patent file was declined. So when we think about the art of the possible, when we think about what the future might hold, we really have to do that with a very open mind. So new business, your business, our business, your customer's business, has new rules. Most conversations that we have with CEOs today have a short-term focus on the things that you'd expect, growth, productivity. But the long-term focus, the long-term vision is around disrupting their own businesses with new business models, new technologies. And I would say that we're actually on the brink of a new technologically driven revolution. And that revolution will fundamentally change the way that we live, the way that we work, and the way that we interact with each other. And as you spot these trends, things appear over and over again. One of the most interesting things is that old has now become new. Go back to 1999 when I was a kid. All right, give or take a year or two. Did anybody have a scooter as a kid? Show of hands. Okay. What was the number one thing that your parents said when you came home on your scooter? Don't leave your scooter on the sidewalk, someone will steal it. You guys all heard that? Okay. What's happened in 2019? Literally leave your scooter on every sidewalk and somebody will pay to use it. So technology is driving the emergence of these new business models. So why would you track the usage of a scooter? What would happen if we track the usage patterns over time? Every time somebody gets on, every time somebody gets off, how far they went, what time of day? What if we could learn from those analytics? What if we could learn how to put more scooters in more available places with higher traffic densities? You might think it's kind of funny about the scooter story, but for the hard business people in the world and the mathematicians, check this slide out. This is the total trips since launch of Uber, of Lime, and of Bird. Cast your eye on the valuations, and cast your eye on the time it's taking for organizations to reach those valuations. But at the same time, think what's happening with that scooter industry. What's the scooter industry doing? It's disrupting rideshare 1.0, which in and of itself disrupted the automobile industry, disrupted the petroleum industry. So disruption is everywhere and all around. We talk a lot about transformation. I try not to talk about digital transformation because it's a really tired phrase. Transformation from a business perspective enabled by technology is really what interests me. And as Darwin has told us over the years, it's not really the strongest or the fittest that survive, it's the most that are adaptive to change. So it's very common for us to hear about technology. As technologists, we like to talk about technology. But it's not so common for us to hear about technology and business talked about in the same conversation. So whether this is challenger banks, whether this is the sharing economy, technologies can't just be applied for the sake of technology, because any transformation activities that are technology alone will absolutely and ultimately fail. So disruption is the new normal. And we all like to talk about classic cases of disruption. You all know how Netflix killed Blockbuster. You all know how Amazon killed normal high street retail. And you know how Apple killed the music industry. But what if I told you that Netflix didn't kill Blockbuster? Amazon didn't kill retailers. And Apple didn't kill the music industry. The disruptors had a new business model. They had the enabling technology, but perhaps most importantly, they had a very good handle on the changing expectations and the buying preferences of their target customers. So in reality, what killed Blockbuster? Extortionate late fees killed Blockbuster. What killed high street retail? A terrible customer experience. And what killed the music industry? It was the artists making you buy full-length albums when you only really like one song. So you may not be from Netflix, you may not be from Apple, you may not be from Amazon, but within your own organizations, you will be faced with the complexity of work. Work is getting more complicated. New business models, new competitors, changing regulations, changing compliance needs, a rush for bringing new products and services to market faster and faster and faster. M&A activities, companies buying smaller companies to try and get a foothold in different markets or within different spaces. All of that leads to a significant set of challenges, the very same challenges that you heard us lay out this morning in the keynote. And you heard David explicitly talk about this morning around employee experience and the fact that talent is what's driving many organizations to kick off these employee experience strategies. Finding the right talent, retaining that talent, and making that talent productive is the #1 challenge that we see across all our customers. Remember David's message from today. Why is technology holding people back? There are too many apps, there's not enough usage of those apps, and there's too much context switching between those applications. So if you want to take a good run at improving productivity, you have to think about delivering information, actionable information, to individuals in different ways. That's why PJ talked a lot this morning about the notion of breaking down applications into atomic units of work. That's at the heart of the intelligent workspace strategy. Centering that around actions instead of applications. And then driving that by rich analytics. Analytics that are based on the context of the individual user. So in case you missed the key takeaway from this morning, I wanted just to kind of show you where we head with the new look for the intelligent workspace. Just a reminder that the traditional Citrix offerings around virtual apps and desktops don't go away. They just become another use case in the context of the overall workspace. Interestingly, social media has kind of fed us things that are important, or at least the social media players believe are important, by understanding the changes within the social graph, and then bringing things into our newsfeed, bringing things into our field of vision that they believe are important. So fundamentally, when you look at the timeline of activities within the intelligent workspace, it's doing a very similar thing. It's using deep and rich analytics to surface things that it believes are important in the context of how you work. It then learns more about you as an individual and delivers you even more contextual information, contextual actions, the more that you interact with the workspace. So expectations and really understanding the expectations and the impact of those is really critical to any new business model, including the one that you heard from David, PJ, and Calvin this morning, the new direction that Citrix is going in. And within those expectations that we see some really interesting trends that are driving the future of work, driving the way that people will work, the way that work is packaged, the way that work is executed, where it's delivered, who it's delivered to, and how it gets done. And the technologies and business practices that have made things like the gig economy possible are still relatively new, they're still emergent. But I honestly believe that there'll be more and more entrepreneurs, both inside business and inside the technology industry, that leverage these same philosophies to drive further and further disruption. And I'm not sure I could stand here and tell you that we're all going to be gig workers in the future. But if you think about what gig workers do, the way they interact with technology, their relationship with technology, their relationship with an organization, it's vastly different than one that we've seen before in terms of longevity in a role or in longevity in a company, the way that you use the technology. So all those underlying things, I think, are definitely here to stay, whether we see gig be the ultimate way that we work or whether we see it morph into other opportunities. So I have to first give credit to Carol's 10 cents here for what is possibly the best thing I've ever seen on Twitter. So I unashamedly stole this with the credit to Carol. But I want to talk about this trend in terms of the gig economy and just how short a window we're talking of how we're fundamentally changing both as a society and with the technology that enables that change. So in 1998, many of us probably had AOL accounts. We probably some of you still got them, right? That's why you were laughing. We all had yahoo.com emails. We probably all used Netscape. You guys remember this, right? And there was this thing that Al Gore invented called the internet. And the scary thing about the internet was it became a place to be concerned about. So for years and years, we were told about the danger of strangers. And we were told as kids, don't ever get in strangers' cars. Ever get in strangers' cars. And the second thing we were told was, don't ever meet people from the internet. Fast forward 10 years, and what happens now? Literally summon strangers from the internet and get into their cars. This is what we call Uber. So in 10 short years, we've seen a meta rise in the use of technology, but in our acceptance of how that technology makes our life easier. Now, I love Uber. I think it's one of the best things I've ever seen. How many of you would get into a plane and fly to a destination with people who weren't professionally trained pilots? Show of hands. There's an old adage that says there's always one. But think about it. We don't really know anything about the people whose cars we get into yet. We're more than happy to jump in and take a ride with them. And the technology is fascinating. So the internet is absolutely the enabler of these new ways of working. Some of these numbers that came from a recent Hootsuite and We Are Social study are actually phenomenal when you think about the size of the demographic using the internet. How many people are on this planet who are internet enabled? How many people are mobile enabled? And by the way, there's only one way that trend's going, and it's going like this. If you guys haven't heard about it, there's a wonderful piece of research that gets done constantly by Cisco, which is called the VNI, the Visual Networking Index, which actually maps out the growth of fixed and wireless capacities and data consumption. It's going to go up and up and up and up and up. The impact of 5G, I think, will be exponential on the mobile internet use case. And that'll continue to fundamentally underpin some of these things that we see within the gig economy. And these numbers are steadily climbing. 20% of all US workers are already contract workers. 20% of the workforce in the US are already contract workers. 47% of millennial workers freelance already, more than any other generation. And there are some expectations that get set with the emergence of work in the way that we see it within the gig economy. And as we've shifted our focus towards a people-centric computing model, you note that there are some key things that are important to us. Everybody is mobile first. They choose the device that's best for them. IT don't provide it. And again, think about Uber. There's a device that the driver has with an app. That's all they need to be productive, all they need to work. One device, one app. One of the cool things about Uber that I didn't know until fairly recently, I was in an Uber talking to the driver, and I said to him, you know, the guy before me actually cancelled my trip. And he said, yeah, he probably didn't like you. I thought, well, there's a high statistical chance of that, but it's a different conversation. But I said, what do you mean he didn't like me? And I didn't realize that as we rate the Uber drivers rate the passengers. And so next time you get a cancellation on your Uber, it might not be because that guy found a better fare. It might be because he found a better passenger. Again, all based on data, analytics, and recommendations. These guys, girls in this new world have on-demand expectations. And just as consumers, like myself, like you guys, will chop and change our service providers based on your experience, based on your overall satisfaction level, so will gig workers. They'll go and work for somebody else if they can find a better way for the technology to work for them. They expect a personalized experience. They expect that because the way that they do work is different. They don't navigate corporate directories. They don't sit in meeting after meeting after meeting. They execute on specific packages of work. And in some cases, it's highly likely that they may not know what the entire organization looks like, because that experience, that work experience, has been personalized just for them. And on the technology side, there's a few great things that we see that are going to further encourage the way in which work changes. It's kind of funny, you can't pick up an industry magazine or read an article today without AI. So anybody not seen AI in the last 24 hours? So the interesting thing about AI is, of course, it's not very new. So the first AI was around about the 1950s, early 60s. I know that none of you in here are wondering who's on this T-shirt, which is why we like to talk about AI. You are wondering. You don't know who it is. But I don't think there's going to be a time soon where civilization gets wiped out by artificial intelligence. I think what we're seeing is a very natural progression towards artificial narrow intelligence, very natural progression to do that. Every time you interact with a virtual assistant, every time you interact with Google, every time you interact with Amazon and it recommends things to you, that's a very simple form of artificial narrow intelligence. It's not particularly complicated, but what really matters to that is the data that you gather and the way that you train the model. So I think if you think about it from a machine learning perspective, it's highly likely that we're going to see further and further commoditization of machine learning. It's highly likely that we're going to be able to just pick algorithms that have been written by smarter people, and then we just use them, and we train our data using those algorithms. I don't think there's going to be any need for us to invest longer term in huge amounts of data scientists in an organization, because I think machine learning algorithms will become commodity. How you get the data, how you train the data, and how you govern the data is going to be far more important. Everywhere you look, we're surrounded by bots. Every time you interact with your insurance provider on their website or the bank on their website, every time you interact with customer service of some kind of web form or other, it's pretty much now being driven by bots. So think about a few years ago, if you're old as I am, anybody ever tried to use the Dragon dictation app? Where you would say, I would like to write a letter, and it ordered you a cheeseburger? So things have got much better in natural language understanding, natural language processing, and the machine learning technologies behind it. So I think what we have there is an opportunity to actually remove those traditional barriers, the ones that made technology difficult and frustrated the end user, and just actually allow that consumer-like experience to prevail across enterprise data. It's partly the reason why you saw what you saw today from the Workspace assistant, some of the other things that we showed in the keynote, because it's a very natural evolution of what's happening in the consumer world. And I think our physical relationship with the machines is definitely changing. Looking around this room, I know most of you guys and girls grew up with the keyboard and mouse being the main input device. I think we're very quickly moving towards a world where the physical and the virtual world will effectively become one. And the way we interact with that world will be either through physical movement or through an augmented reality, virtual reality, through voice as the interface. I think all of these things that we see every day changing the way that we interact, the way you speak to your car, the way you speak to home automation devices, the way you speak to smart speakers. It's amazing to me how it feels so revolutionary, yet we've spoken to each other since the dawn of time. And as David talked about this morning, the shape-shifting, fluid, liquid enterprise, those that are the most able to adapt to change, the pace of change in every organization. David concluded that businesses that can seamlessly kind of shift the people and technology resources around, create new workflows to sort of capitalize on changing market conditions, and contextually put the right data, the right information at the fingertips of the people, they are the ones who are going to win. So why are we so invested in the thought of the shape-shifting enterprise? Because to support the shape-shifting enterprise, you have to have a shape-shifting technology platform. So our goal really is to build a platform for work, not a portal for apps. And to deliver an experience that can be across different devices, across different channels, and can deliver a contextual experience to the individual based on learning how they work and providing the quickest way for them to get work done. So every year I throw up this same slide and we change it a little bit. And these are the things that I believe are what we're really talking about in terms of balancing the trends with the realities of where we are today and where we head tomorrow. So all of these things on the user demand side are not getting any easier. In fact, the user demand, I would argue, if you think about the things like the gig economy, you think about a contingent workforce, you think about the change in worker demographic, Generation Z, all of these things are coming at us faster than ever. And our technology choices are abundant. These are just a few of the things that I think are going to be needle movers in the context of how work gets done. And so when we talk about the workspace, we don't talk about it in the CTO office as the Workspace app. We talk about it as the experience. So an experience that can consume or be consumed by different and complementary technology platforms. So we're talking about a general purpose, universal work platform to deliver the best productivity, irrespective of who the user is, where the user is, what device they prefer to use, and what the task at hand is. So we've talked a lot in the last few months here at Citrix about the strategy overall, this notion of being able to organize work, bringing everything together in the earlier versions of Workspace that we brought to market last year around about the same time. To guide work by delivering capabilities for notifications, actions, and workflows to be consumed on new, different types of devices. And then to automate work by delivering a truly flexible workspace platform to consume that experience that the individual needs. And on that platform, we build the capability to drive new methods of engagement, new methods of collaboration, irrespective of where those global teams reside. So you see, technology is kind of helping us out, but the challenge that we have really is how to balance the technology at the pace that every organization can consume it. So the shape of this future of work is somewhat amorphous. And by logical extension of our thought process, the way that we think about building this platform also has to be amorphous. It needs to be built to support whatever combination of work and worker you can imagine today and tomorrow. And we talked a lot today about this employee imperative. So the employee imperative doesn't really matter whether that employee is full-time, part-time, contingent worker, gig worker. Whether they're early stage career, mid-career, late career, technology platforms like the Workspace platform can be built really to help any combination of those workers, locations, age groups, demographics. So the goal really is to actually improve productivity while getting the technology out of the way. So there's more commonality. The more you think about this, the more commonality you see. So we talked about a lot of trends in how we think work's going to get packaged, how it's going to get executed. And each of these types of work has a slightly different set of needs, a slightly different set of requirements. But ultimately, even within these diverse work styles, the fundamental IT challenges remain the same. Balancing the experience and security. How do you actually build technology that enables digital transformation and doesn't hold individuals back? And how do you build something that's equally usable, equally valuable, and equally compelling for people inside the office versus people who may never enter the home office at all? So they each have different characteristics. So whether you're the at-home worker, permanently outside of the office, whether you're the gig worker, or whether you're the dynamic worker, each has a slightly different set of characteristics that we must meet within our own organizations to deliver the right platform for them. And the dynamic worker gets to be really interesting because they expect the technology to be both available but also to be invisible. They'll just pick up and connect to and use whatever's the most convenient at the time. They'll be guided towards productivity by a combination of who they are, where they are, what device they're using, and what they need to get done at that moment in time. They'll expect adaptability, so using intelligent location awareness to deliver the right information is a key foundation of the mobile strategy that we discussed in the keynote today. And in every single device manufacturer, every single operating system and operating system platform has capabilities for us to leverage within the context of the intelligent workspace experience. So in a medium term, we'll kind of look at extending some of the things that you saw today by adding in deep integrations with mobile devices so that you can effectively talk to your workspace without needing to launch an application. And the more that you use the Citrix Workspace, the more we learn about you. So for those of a nervous disposition, the next 10 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes may make you a little bit uncomfortable, but bear with me. So this is kind of the epitome of Big Brother. And it's what I actually call the learning machine. You see how I very cleverly just changed it around there, right? So I don't think I'm due a career in marketing anytime soon. But the reason why we call it the learning machine is that Citrix is the learning machine. The analytics platform, all the feeds that you saw today, and many, many more that we're thinking about in the next stages. We become the learning machine, understanding very deeply you as an individual, your device preferences, the typical locations, the types of things that you do. But I'm not really interested in how long you spend in an application. I'm interested in why you spend time in that application. So when I think about automating work, I don't think about it in the context of the way that we talk about it today. I think about it in the context of what we can bring with our productivity analytics to really understand how to guide you in the fastest possible way to what you need to get done. To learn from you as individuals, and to evolve our current thinking into a platform for true automation. And why do we care? Because productivity is at an all-time low. The UK Office for National Statistics, which I was reading their recent report on the plane ride across here, for the 4th consecutive quarter, our overall productivity in the UK has dropped. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you may know there's this thing called Brexit, which you could argue might have some impact on that. But generally speaking, we're spending more and more money on technology, and it's not helping with productivity. In fact, our overall output per hour is also going down, which is not a good metric if you kind of understand what happens in the context of labor statistics and output. That's not a really good trend at all. So all these things are opportunities for us. Think about everything that we see in terms of the user transactions within the workspace. We can turn that into a significant advantage for delivering on productivity simply by focusing more and more on the user, on what they do, why they do it, and moreover, how we track it. So if you were following along today, you'll have heard some conversations within the keynote about analytics. You will have heard us talk about security analytics, performance analytics, but not so much about productivity analytics. So imagine if there was a scenario where we had opportunities to track everything that you did across the entire portfolio of what you saw today from within the Citrix Workspace environment. Imagine if we were able to track everything that you did inside a virtual app or virtual desktop. Imagine if we were able to use our secure browser and our embedded browser technology to track everything that you did within a web or a SaaS app. And imagine if we used a combination of API control technology and an agent within Citrix Endpoint Management to understand what it is that you do in mobile applications. Now that might freak you out, and it probably should. But imagine if we could take all that and actually figure out how to make the best machine learning model to you as an individual. Imagine if we were in path of every single user transaction. Imagine if we knew why you were clicking on every button, every submission, every search. Why are you doing that? We learn more and more about you as an individual by learning why you do those things. And then what if we could tie that learning into more efficient micro apps and micro workflows and deliver more and more relevance in the context of the intelligent workspace timeline? What if we could then further augment all the things that you do inside the workspace, even within the intelligent workspace? Learn more about you, train the model more, move towards true automation with a single goal in mind, getting you out of the business of doing things that don't add any value to your organization. The key to this is user transaction data. This is why we're so keen to have everybody be using Citrix Workspace to its full extent. We want to be the preferred place to work for 1 billion people worldwide. That 1 billion people going through Citrix Workspace, going through our trackers, collecting the source data, providing deep analytics on that source data to give you a user profile model that continually learns, continually changes, and continually delivers you the best opportunity to be productive. I think it's time for a demo, James.
I think it is.
And the only reason I know that is because it says it on here. So
that's helpful, isn't it?
So that's pretty cool. OK, so for those who don't know James, I should probably introduce James. There are no words to describe James, really, but I go into his office. Well, no, there are a few, actually, but I wouldn't share them in a family show. I draw things on James's whiteboard, and then I give him impossible timelines to build it. And then I hound him on social media and on text message and email until he finally cracks and just says, I've built it, it's done. So this actually was one of those kind of brain ideas I had just only a couple of weeks ago, where I was trying to figure out how we should show a demo of all the things that I've talked about. So bringing in the new ways of working, bringing in the user transactions, bringing in the machine learning, bringing in the way to get technology out of the way. And I thought, the best way to do it is to probably try it on a device that we've never used before. So this is where it gets a bit tricky. And if there are anybody of a religious persuasion in here, just offer up a small thought for me here with the demo gods, because this really could go anywhere. So this is a Samsung S9. Anybody got an S9? Yeah, excellent. Great device, by the way. Anybody ever used Siri or Cortana or anything of that nature? Yeah. So Samsung has its own built-in voice assistant, which is called Bixby. And so what we're going to do here, we're going to, I hope, we're going to talk to Bixby. Bixby's going to connect to the Citrix Workspace, and we're going to go through a few things that is based on my previous interactions and how all the things I talked about come to life in terms of the way that we think about it in Workspace. So, you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Deep breath. Hi, Bixby. Hi, Bixby.
OK, let me fix it for you.
This is why you need James.
Yeah, I think we're good to go with the main part of the demo now.
Thanks, James. Hi, Bixby.
Good afternoon. Christian, what's on your mind?
How long have you got? Connect to Citrix Workspace.
Hello, Christian. I hope your day is going well. Citrix Location Service has detected you're in your permanent office, and therefore I don't need any additional authentication factors. You have a one-to-one with David Henshaw in 15 minutes. As you have some time before the meeting, I have some recommendations for you. Would you like me to proceed?
Yes.
As you have a one-to-one with David Henshaw coming up, you may want to approve his PTO request for Disney World. Do you approve?
So for those who get the joke from last year, when we did the teaser for what would become Intelligent Workspace, there was a demo that I did with David. He was going on holiday to Disney World, but he didn't end up going because the demo didn't quite work. So this thing comes back to haunt me every so often, so we'll try and do it again. Approved.
Approved. Continue.
Oh. I've got David's cell phone here.
David's...
It's just got a text message to say his PTO is approved.
So that's part of the workflow. So David gets a text message and he's got It's a Small World, after all, as his ringtone. Continue.
I know that at this time of day, you normally approve expense reports using the full app. I've created a micro app to help you do this more quickly. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
Here's your micro app. Do you approve the request in the micro app?
Approved.
Approved. I've noticed that you approved expense reports under $500 for the same employee, Alice Smith, a number of times without inspecting the details. I assume you trust this person. Would you like to move future approvals of this type to our BA?
Yes, please.
Okay, the Intelligent Workspace will take care of this from now on, but if there are any reports greater than $500 from Alice Smith, then I'll request approval using a micro app. I think this RPA will save you around 25 to 30 minutes per day. You have a one-to-one with David Henshaw in 13 minutes. How about taking a few minutes rest before it starts?
Thank you, Bixby. Cool. Okay, so you actually saw a lot of things happening there kind of at the same time. So it was leveraging the Workspace platform, of course, leveraging our somewhat virtualized voice assistant construct there, which doesn't really care which voice assistant you use to drive the Workspace conversation. It automatically created a micro application based on some transactions I'd done historically. It noticed that I've done certain things that didn't feel were valuable to me because I was just clicking approve. So it's moved that now to an automatic approval for things under $500. So there's a kind of a ton of stuff going on there, but I just wanted to kind of give a sort of a visual representation of the things that we've talked about in terms of how we believe that bringing all these things together in a very natural way will really kind of help drive a lot of the productivity things that we were talking about. So I reckon that's sort of it, James, right?
Well, I didn't come all this way just to hand a phone to you. Do I get a go?
Do you think we should give James a demo?
Yeah. All right. I think I win that one.
All right.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Take it away.
All right. So let me show you a demo. So we showed one device. So Christian had his Samsung Bixby. And that's his personal device, but I'd like to just go into a meeting room and use the Amazon Echo or whatever device is in there. So let's look at an example of that. So what we can see here is this is a big screen in our, it turns out, Turing conference room in Cambridge. Actually, complete coincidence that Christian's wearing that. So what I'm going to do here, and I apologize, I'm going to walk near the speaker, so this is probably going to create a lot of noise. I'm going to scan this QR code with my Workspace app. And that's going to connect me into that device. So now, because we've got an association with Citrix Endpoint Management connecting our Alexa for Business in this room, we can now hopefully say, Alexa, open Citrix demo.
Hello, James Bullpen. This is Citrix Workspace in Turing Conference Room. How can I help?
What's next on my schedule?
You have Synergy session debrief with Christian in 5 minutes. Would you like me to book this space, Turing Conference Room, for your call?
No. We'll do it in the pub.
Okay. Would you like to use the time before the call to get a few quick tasks done?
Yes.
I've prioritized 2 approvals. Travel request from Concur. Christian Riley has requested travel authorization to join David Henshaw at Disney World. Estimated cost $6,500. Do you approve?
No.
Rejecting request. File access request from Citrix Workspace. David Henschel has requested access to your file, q1spendanalysis.xlsx. Do you approve?
Pause.
Okay.
So, bit of a problem. I can't use the Turing meeting room, actually, because Christian's staff meeting's there. I kind of got that wrong. So I'm actually going to have to quickly hop out of there and head down the hallway to one of our little huddle spaces. I walk quite quickly, as you can see. And I'm going to do exactly the same. Of course, what we're doing here is we're virtualizing the experience, just like we virtualize our apps and our data. What we're going to do here is virtualize, if I can get this thing to focus on the QR code, we're going to virtualize our conversational experience, because in this room, there happens to be a Google Home rather than an Echo. OK, Google, talk to Citrix demo.
Sure, getting the test version of Citrix demo. Hello, James Bullpin. This is Citrix Workspace in Newton Huddle Space. How can I help?
Where was I?
Sorry, I'm still learning and I didn't understand what you just said. Please try again.
OK, we'll give it one more go. OK, Google, talk to Citrix demo.
Sure, let's get the test version of Citrix demo. Hello, James Bullpin. This is Citrix Workspace in Newton Huddle Space. How can I help?
Where was I?
Hello again. File access request from Citrix Workspace. David Henschel has requested access to your file, Q1 Spend Analysis, XLSX. Do you approve?
Yes.
I've shared the file with David and sent him a note about the sensitivity of its contents. Let's get you prepared for your meeting. Citrix Productivity Analytics thinks you may need a file named Sales Figures for the meeting. Would you like to open it?
Yes, please.
OK, the Citrix Files DLP policy requires additional authentication. We can do this via facial recognition. Please position yourself in front of the webcam.
OK.
Thank you, James. Identity confirmed. Opening your file, it'll be just a moment. Are you ready to join the call?
Yes.
OK, joining the call. Don't forget to remind everyone to visit the Innovation Showcase in the Citrix Experience Center to see more demos.
James Bullpin. Can I get take? Okay, so we're a little bit over time, and respectful of the next presenter. So just in summary, we've talked a lot about the gig economy. That's just one example of the things that we see that are driving the change. There are plenty more, and there will continue to be plenty more. So I just think in this general age of the gig economy, the increasingly mobile workforce, increasingly wanting to work from anywhere and with anything. And I think, in essence, we've got job and location are being completely disrupted. And I think that disruption will be what powers the next generation of the economy, and hopefully Citrix and you guys will have a great part in that. So thank you for being with us, and enjoy the rest of the show.